Toronto Maple Leafs have made multiple surprising moves ahead of tonight's big game against the Philadelphia Flyers, and these moves are involving Nick Robertson as well as Jake McCabe. We're going to break down exactly what the moves are and discuss what this means going forward. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We're getting close to 15,000 subscribers. So if you want to help us towards that goal, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And again, we'll be live following tonight's game, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But Darius, a lot of moves going on. We have an update surrounding Jake McCabe, and of course, we have some interesting lineup changes, and we've been alluding this and hinting at this at our live stream about what moves they're going to make ahead of tonight's game, considering the fact that there were some shenanigans, I will say, in the previous game against the Flyers. So let's dive right into it here. So, according to the Maple Leafs line rushes, we do have the full lines now. In Philadelphia this morning, via David Alter, shout out to him, Ryan Reeves is drawing in, and Nick Robertson is a projected scratch for the Flyers. So before we go over the full lineups, I want to go over this. We obviously were discussing Nick Robertson on our stream a couple of days ago. We've been talking about it. It's been a huge talking point. He's been playing very bad as of late, and he obviously had a decent stretch, but he hasn't been playing well, and they're keeping Connor Dewar in. They're keeping David Kampf in, and Nick Robertson is the one that factors out here, which is very interesting because we've been seeing him on that third line. So now, with the fourth line seemingly, they're going to be interesting. We have the lines in a minute here, but Nick Robertson is out tonight, and they're putting in Ryan Reeves, which makes sense given the Domi elbow, given the Jake McCabe fight, and now we have an update on McCabe as well here. But multiple moves here to go over.
I think, there's two things here. I think Nick Robertson's play as of late, because obviously the month of December was really good to him and that line. They were playing well. Him being out, I think, is more actually right now about Ryan Reeves drawing back in for this game. And I don't think it's because Ryan Reeves is going to go after Garnet Hathaway, because I don't think Garnet Hathaway, maliciously injured or, intended to injure Jake McCabe. I don't think that was, anything like that. So obviously it was an unfortunate incident, and now McCabe is out at least a week. It looks like he probably has a concussion or dealing with something similar to that, which is not great because that's two concussions very close to each other over the course of one season. So not great, but hopefully Jake McCabe's okay. But again, in terms of Ryan Reeves, I think he's being inserted into the lineup just to diffuse things. I've been saying it all season. I think he's more of the diffuser at this point in his career, where if you are running around, other teams know that you are going to have to answer to Ryan Reeves. And that's unfortunate because he's a big boy and he knows how to throw some punches. So I think that it's more about that tonight. Again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will go after Garnet Hathaway, but I think without Reeves in the lineup tonight, things could get ugly, like you mentioned, because of the Domi elbow at the end of the game and stuff like that. So I feel like there could be some shenanigans tonight, but I think inserting Ryan Reeves into the lineup is less about, Nick Robertson and less about him fighting Hathaway and more so about him diffusing the situation so things don't get out of hand tonight. But I do think that there is potential for fireworks tonight, and I think that's exciting because it is a random Tuesday night game in January, and sometimes you need some extracurriculars like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's going in to fight anybody, really, or like intentionally go out. I don't think that happens as much now, but I do think they're putting him in for a couple reasons. And let's start to look at the lineups here. Obviously, Robertson is out, Pontus Holmberg is out, so they're rocking with Knies, Matthews, Marner, McMahon, Tavares, Nylander, Pacioretty, Domi, Lorentz, Dewar, Kampf, and Reeves here. And the third line now, so Steven Lorentz is up now to the third line alongside Domi and Pacioretty. And you mentioned how you don't think it's necessarily Nick Robertson being out because of that. I agree partially. That being said, Dewar and Kampf, those were the two guys, specifically Connor Dewar, who's usually been, getting replaced by Ryan Reeves here. So Dewar's been playing good. David Kampf has been playing good. So those two guys have been outplaying Nick Robertson as of late. And I agree with you about the rough stuff. I think that in this point, especially for tonight's game, having Ryan Reeves in the lineup is all just going to give you a more net positive result than Nick Robertson has been, because when Nick Robertson isn't scoring, he doesn't provide much else, although he is doing a better job of throwing his body around. But I just think Reeves is a better matchup tonight, and it's also the diffuser thing in the situation. And I don't know, it's an interesting line here, and I want to get your thoughts on the third and fourth lines. Dewar, Kampf, and Reeves. It's a very interesting line. I do think that Dewar's been playing great. Kampf has been playing great, especially both of them on the PK here. And Steven Lorentz has been a hidden gem for the Leafs all season long. He's on the third line now, so I'm curious to see what happens with this third line. And Pacioretty's on the third line. You have McMahon, Tavares, Nylander now manning the second line, so it's interesting. We've been seeing some good things out of Craig Berube, and Nick Robertson being out is, I honestly think it's more so him just playing badly as opposed to Ryan Reeves getting in, but we can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, and I mean, one guy we haven't even touched on is Holmberg, and I'll get to that in a second, right? Because I think that's a very interesting storyline as well. But in terms of the lines and who's actually playing tonight, the second line, when Nylander's not going, which he hasn't been the last couple of games, we talked about it in our last stream. Sometimes he goes for a nap over the course of a season, over the course of a couple of games. That line looks pretty ugly. So I feel like maybe they're just shaking it up just to see, what happens. McMahon looked pretty disinterested last game too, but when he's on his game, this guy is a difference maker. So I want to see what he can do with William Nylander on that top line. Pacioretty moves down. I think that's a very interesting and heavy third line with Domi there, and maybe he has a couple protectors there because obviously he threw that elbow. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. We'll see. I think Lorentz has earned a promotion per se, right? He's not going to move up to the second or the first line, but I think he's been playing really well this season. And I think that he's a guy who can really get you a goal when you need it. We saw it just a couple games ago. And then the fourth line, like you need Reeves in the lineup for this game. You just absolutely need him. I think Kampf and Dewar are great players in their roles. And I think that, they want to see what they have in both of them before they make any big decisions at the trade deadline. So they'll both see some action tonight. And the defense is interesting too, because obviously you're missing McCabe. So OEL is going with Tanev. It's an interesting mix. We know what we have in McCabe. Sorry, not McCabe, Benoit and Timmins. So that's no surprise there. And obviously the first pairing there has been playing pretty well as of late. So pretty interesting decisions tonight. And I wonder if some of them are just because of who they're playing and what happened last game.
Yeah, they want to keep Riley Myers. Myers had his best game of the season, the Toronto Maple Leafs the other night. So now it's going to be it's a very interesting game now. Obviously, you mentioned a random Tuesday night against the Flyers. It's there's a lot of storylines coming into this game, and Pontus Holmberg out as well. He hasn't been playing great. Bobby McMahon was playing really well, one of the better 5-on-5 goal scorers in the NHL now. And Joseph Wall also projects to be tonight's starting goalie. There was some talk about maybe giving Dennis Hill to be the start, but it is going to be Joseph Wall, their third start in the last 4 games. You can see this here from Leafs Nation News. It brings up some interesting points. Leafs Nation News says, I've defended Holmberg more than most, mainly because of his work prior to the season, but I think he's pretty much done here. They found a bottom six that's dynamic. I tend to agree. Camp has looked good with Lorentz and Dewar, who both bring more tenacity and energy than Holmberg. I really think he could be a good bottom six elsewhere, though. And I mean, this brings up the question now. The two players who were scratched tonight are both highly likely to at least be involved in trade talks as the trade deadline approaches, because this, the players that are on the, to start the 4 lines tonight, they're going to be most likely, aside from Reeves, you're obviously going to be switching people out, but we know that the Leafs are going to be pursuing a third line center, which moves everybody down. These are going to be the guys that the Leafs are going to continue to use, and I think are going to be their playoff lines alongside whatever player they acquire, multiple players that they acquire. So Robertson and Holmberger seem to be the odd men out, specifically Pontus Holmberg. I think Nick Robertson is still kind of up in the air there, but we'll have further videos on that as well. But David Kampf has looked really good with Lorentz and Dewar, and that line has kind of been, since Connor Dewar got healthy, shining as of late here. So it's very interesting. And regarding Jake McCabe as well, he's going to miss at least a week of action. We had a video on it yesterday, which is good news, I think, because we were talking about multiple weeks. It says we'll miss a week, most likely concussion protocol. He has been placed in the IR, and they have Marshall Rafai, who they called up in his absence. And again, having Connor Timmins as your seventh defenseman is a pretty nice luxury, considering he was the top six for most of the start of the season. So, any final thoughts here? There's a lot of storylines heading into tonight's game, and the Leafs are very, very busy regarding, and Craig Brubake's been busy regarding having to make changes in the fly all season long here. And Anthony Stolarz, again, by the end of the month, we're seeing him around the team. He's not skating yet, but a lot of things are going, and the Leafs are one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now.
Yeah, in terms of Holmberg, I mean, I thought he looked great under Sheldon Keefe's system with the Sheldon Keefe coach team. It hasn't translated this season at all from the start of the season to this point. So could I see him being traded? Yes, I think that he could be another, really good piece on another team in that role, like a third line center role, but it doesn't work here. I think, in a perfect world with a full lineup, fully healthy after the trade deadline, I think Robertson and Holmberg aren't even in the lineup. So I think they're going to have to start taking a look at that because they have a better and more dynamic bottom six this year. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then Joseph Woll starting tonight. Love to see that. I think he needs to get into more games. They got to, put some trust into him, see what he can do, right? So I love that. And then tonight is also the start of the mentors trip, which is pretty interesting. A lot of the players are bringing their mentors on the trip, and Austin Matthews is bringing Joe Thornton, who's wearing his own jersey. He's not even wearing. Some of the mentors wear like the player's jersey who brought them. Joe Thornton is wearing his own jersey, which I think is hilarious. So that tonight is the start of the mentors trip, and always a good trip. So there should be some good content out of that. But should be a good game tonight because clearly, what happened last game, and Look, one last thing in terms of McCabe, obviously he's out for at least a week and they're going to continue to monitor him. I'm assuming it's just concussion protocol to make sure no symptoms kind of come back up because if he did suffer a concussion here, or even if he didn't and they're just monitoring him, suffering two concussions back to back in such a short period of time, not great. So I think they're just going to take their time with him and make sure he's ready to go.
Yeah, and a ton of storylines. We're going to keep you up to date and make sure to tune into the stream tonight because it's going to be a good one. But let us know what your thoughts are down below on the lineup changes. Craig Berube is not afraid to make changes. It was just a nice change following Sheldon Keefe. So thank you guys for watching. And again, see you guys later tonight.